Hello and welcome to a new episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
And I'm Evan Grant.
And it appears, Evan, that a late season push for a playoff spot for the Rangers could be coming to an end. The club got to within a game and a half of that third wild card, but then a sweep in Houston, especially that Wednesday night game, which was ultimately basically a 3-game swing. And the club is now 5 out in the West and 4.5 out for that third wild card, and we just have 9 games to play.
Yeah, it's not looking good. The Mariners have pulled away. The Indians have jumped in front of the Rangers in the wild card race. I think the only thing that is working in the Rangers' favor is that if they somehow can get back into this, they've got a tiebreaker with Boston, which is now holding the third wild card spot. It's been amazing the amount of shuffling that's gone on in front of them in the last just 72 hours, really.
And that elimination number for Texas is 6 over the Red Sox, as Evan mentioned. Any combination at this point of 6 Boston wins and 6 Ranger losses would eliminate the Rangers from contention in the 2025 pennant race.
Yeah. Anything that adds up to 6, 3 Ranger losses and 3 Red Sox wins, you can do the rest of the math. Right. But the Rangers, in the meantime, come home to host the Marlins and the Twins starting tonight, close out the home schedule before finishing up the road in Cleveland. To make that Cleveland series matter at all, or to hope to have that Cleveland series matter at all, the Rangers pretty much have to sweep the homestand.
And our guest this week is former Rangers first baseman Mitch Moreland, who's no stranger to pennant races and won a World Series championship with the Red Sox in 2018. And we're going to talk to Mitch not only about Ranger history, but his dalliance with the Savannah Bananas, and then now he is a high school baseball coach.
Looking forward to that. I want to hear what Mitch's take on the Bananas. He's a 2-time Banana, I think. So I'm looking forward to hearing all that. But I also can't wait to hear what the archives in Arlington are going to be this week. What are you going to creak open and tell us about this time, John?
Well, we're going to call it Let's Have Hope. And we're going to look at a couple of the races down the stretch. Ranger teams that were kind of on the fringe and then got themselves back into it. And we're going to give our fans a little hope that not everything is lost.
Yeah, what an optimist you are. Just a reminder that we've moved Sports Day Rangers to Fridays, and you can find it in the same feed as the Dallas Morning News Sports Day Insider podcast, which drops earlier in the week. That's our podcast with Kevin Sherrington and myself, and usually a guest from inside the sports department at the Morning News.
And you can feel free to reach out to both of us at X. I'm at Ranger Blake, and Evan is at Evan_P_Grant. So, again, this is our 19th episode. It's hard to believe. Evan and I have been able to be civil enough to do this. For next week, we might have a little party for our 20th episode. But now
I'm looking forward to your version of a party, John.
Well, we'll see. When you get to be my age, parties are not quite as celebratory.
What happens at parties at your age?
We sit around and talk about Geritol and things of that nature.
Do they still make Geritol?
I don't know. That's an old folk reference, that's for sure.
It's an old folks reference is what it is, yeah.
Yes, it is. So let's talk about where the Rangers are right now.
You sure you don't want to talk about Geritol instead?
No, let's get into this a little bit. Week ago, well, Saturday, less than a week ago, the Rangers had won the first 2 games in New York. Things were looking good. They lost the final of that New York series against the Mets on a walk-off. And then Houston came and proved that the Astros are certainly a team still to be reckoned with here in 2025.
Yeah, and, we can sit around and talk about all the misfortune that the Rangers are dealing with right now with the absence of Corey Seager and Marcus Semien and Nathan Eovaldi, but Houston lost Yordan Alvarez again, one at bat into that series. And the Astros, have played all year without two cornerstones of their most recent run of success, Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker, both of whom now play for other clubs, and yet here they are, as we sit here today, back in first place in the American League West, with a chance to win their I think it's their ninth AL West title in the last 10
Believe so,
years.
yeah. Mhm.
So, the Rangers did not play their best baseball in Houston, John. They made two errors in that first game, one by Jack Leiter, one in the field, and that led to trouble. In the second game, when they had a chance to, in the first game, they kind of ran themselves into an out because they were out of players on the bench, and Tony Beasley took a chance, and they ran themselves into an out with Jonah Heim at home plate. They've been a good base running team this year, but that was not a good base running play or base running decision. And then the next night, when they needed a guy to run, Josh Smith didn't run. So, the things that the Rangers have done well, we can talk about the offense all we want, but the things the Rangers have done well, including starting pitching. All three starters gave up 5 runs or more to this Astros team. So none of the things that the Rangers did well this season did they do well in that series in Houston. And you knew that was bound to happen at some point over the course of the year. But for it to happen when the Rangers climb so close, it's certainly a disappointment for this club.
And you talk about the starting pitching, 17 runs, 14 earned runs, and 14 and 2/3 innings in those 3 games. And Jacob deGrom has been pretty much lights out all year, but he's getting his innings are getting up, and it's a long season, and it just doesn't look like the same guy the last 2 or 3 starts. It was early, but again, it's a long season, and here's a guy that really hasn't pitched a lot of innings in the last few years.
Listen, I think that at the beginning of the year when we did our special section, Kevin, Sean, and I, along with Sean Bass, and I think Newey Scruggs all did, among our predictions was an over-under for starts that Jacob would make. And I think I was the high guy when I said 22 or 24. He's made 29. He's pitched 167 plus innings. And my takeaway from Thursday night was, that might be the last start deGrom makes this year. The next time that he pitches, the Rangers could be eliminated. And I think that the Rangers would like to take every not precaution at this point, but he's gone past the level of innings I think the Rangers really expected him to go this year. He's pitched really well. I think this club would have said, if they got 150 innings in the regular season from him, they'd be thrilled. He's pushing 170, and if this team is eliminated, I don't think there's a need for him to make another start unless it's just a token thing so Jacob can say he made 30 starts this year.
So offensively, we can get into the injuries and the little rascals who kind of held it together for a while. But Evan, in that Houston series, when you look at 3 key guys at the top of your lineup, Josh Smith 2 for 14, Wyatt Langford 2 for 14, and Adolis Garcia coming off the IL 1 for 13 with the pinch single. He played great defense, obviously, on Wednesday night. But when you look at the grand scope of things, those guys are the guys that had to produce with Corey Seager and Marcus Semien out of the lineup.
Well, and you didn't include Jake Berger in there, and he hit third. The Rangers pushed him up to third for the start of the series, and I think he went 0 for 7 with 5 punch-outs in the first 2 games before being sat. And then the Rangers ended up with Rowdy Tellez, who wasn't on this team at the beginning of July, hitting cleanup. And so it just showed all the weaknesses of this team, and it showed the regression offensively of this team. Wyatt's found ways to get on base even when he doesn't hit. The other guys not so much. And that's been the story of this team, is it's either all or nothing. If these guys are hitting, the offense rolls. If they're not hitting, there's not a lot of guys in this lineup that walk, and it's hard to create and sustain rallies. So that I saw in this most recent series in Houston, it's something that we hadn't seen a ton of for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but It's the problem that sunk this team from the start of the year on, and it's going to be the thing that is going to be the single item that gets the most discussion going into the offseason, and that the Rangers spend the most amount of time trying to address.
And one other thing they've got to address too, and I don't know how you do it, is their road record this year. It's 32-46 now going into those last 3 games in Cleveland. And even in bad years, it's the second fewest wins that they've had on the road in the last 17 years. They didn't have a winning road trip against teams with winning records. And you've got to figure out a way to win on the road. You can't just rely on being able to play well at home.
They've been a poor road team this year. They weren't a very good road team last year. Ever since they put ROAD on the World Series rings, they haven't been a good road team. They weren't a particularly good road team during the 2023 season before lighting it up. And that's something that's got to be addressed. And it's also a little bit of a mystery is, the offense, for as poor as the offense has been, it's the ballpark in the Globe Life Field is supposed to have more of a negative impact on the offense, but on the road, you would expect them to really tick up, and they haven't. They haven't been a much better offensive team on the road than they are at home.
Well, a couple things to look ahead to. Tyler Mahle is coming off the ILs, looks like, on Friday to make a start. And then the other thing, the Rangers, you can postseason, yes, but you want to end with a winning record. They've got to go 3-6 here to have their second winning record in the last 3 years, just the second in the last 9 years, but just kind of build on some of that momentum as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I still put value into finishing with more than 81 wins. I don't know if the basic fan base does, but winning records are important, and I think that's something that the Rangers need to do this year to say it was an ultimate disappointment, but it wasn't a complete disappointment.
So we'll see what happens. We're not going to get into all the scenarios today. Basically, the Rangers just have to beat the Marlins, beat the Twins, and then when we talk again next Friday, we'll see where they are.
And again, if they do all of that, if they sweep the Marlins and the Twins, they are in position to have made up some ground on Boston and potentially have jumped back past Cleveland. But it then puts them in the position basically to have to sweep Cleveland to stay ahead of the Guardians. So it's not an enviable position. Nobody is making any comments that it is. The Rangers have not been in an enviable spot really since the second month of the year. I just think that it's been a disappointment for this club that they had come so close, only to have it fall with these 4 straight losses at a most critical time.
And so we'll see what happens. Our guest, as we mentioned, is going to be Mitch Moreland. Had 110 homers in his time with the Rangers and was kind of a little rascal himself in 2010. Went on to win a Gold Glove in 2016, and then won the ultimate World Series with the Red Sox 2 years later. So we'll talk to Mitch next. Well, our guest on this week's Sports Day Rangers, Mitch Moreland, 12-year big leaguer, played with the Rangers from 2010 to 2016. Now we're going to talk to him a little about his new career as a high school baseball coach and his time with the Savannah Bananas this summer. But I want to start, Mitch, and thanks for joining us today. I want to start kind of with 2010 because the Rangers have been going through this now with some of these young players that came up, during a pennant race. And that's exactly your role in 2010. I mean, you were a non-roster guy in spring training that year. And, Chris Davis was our first baseman coming into that season. And then he struggled, and then it was Justin Smoke. Smoke gets traded to Seattle in the Cliff Lee deal, and all of a sudden on July 29th, you're up and in the big leagues on a veteran ball club, and start like 2/3 of the games, more than 2/3 of the rest of the season. What was that like for you? It had to be moving pretty quickly.
Yeah, looking back, I've talked about 2010 a ton. When people bring up my career and the path that I had and what I went through, and a lot of what I talk to the younger guys about is 2010 and how Chris Davis was ahead of me, Smoke was ahead of me, and I keep telling them, look, if you keep your head down and you keep working, you never know what's going to happen, because that was the last thing I expected. Started the year out in AAA playing right field every day, pretty much. Maybe a little bit of left, but mostly right. And those two guys were Chris Davis had almost won Rookie of the Year, I think 2 years before that. Smoke was the day Smoke was drafted. I started playing more right field than I did first base, unless I was a level below him. So it was just one of those things where I try not to let it get in my head, get in my way, and um, they kept telling me if I hit, they would find a spot. So that's what I tried to do through the minor leagues. And obviously, when I saw that Smoke was the headliner for the Cliff Lee trade, Bobby Jones actually reached up, or he called me and he's like, "Hey, you got your first base bit ready?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "All right, we'll start practicing there, and I hope you got a sport coat, kid." And that was his call to me about a week later when I got called up, or 2 weeks later. He said, "Get that sport coat ready." So it was a fun path along the way, and kind of thrust into action as far as first base goes. And what a great group to learn from. I mean, the veteran team that we had in 2010 and 11, you don't see those teams anymore. I mean, we had multiple guys with 10 years, a couple guys approaching 20. It was a very, very veteran team with a few young guys sprinkled in. And um, it was exciting around the ballpark because it's kind of the first time that the Rangers had really won, and really had a team that I felt like people were open to cheering for, ready to cheer for. It was something I feel like that Dallas Fort Worth area needed, and we were able to bring it, and that was a fun year, a really fun year, and I mean the year following it was just as much fun. That was a good time to come up for sure.
That year when you came up, you just the way you phrased it was, if you keep your head down, this is what you were talking about in the minor leagues. If you keep your head down and do your job, that's what you were going to worry about. And when you got to the big leagues, you were surrounded by guys who had either all grown up together, with Michael and Ian and that group, or like you said, veterans. And so how easy did it make getting acclimated to the big leagues and just allowing you to be the most successful version of who you were at that point?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's nobody better to learn how to play Major League Baseball from, and to prepare every day and the ins and outs of it than Michael Young. Um, that guy was a professional at everything he did. Y'all understand that too. Y'all can back me on that. This guy was so buttoned up when it came from game planning to his work to travel to whatever it was. Mike Young was a guy that I just tried to, you know, every team needed. And he was a great guy to learn from, and probably one of the main reasons that the Rangers made that turn during that time was, I mean, that guy was on the older teams that had really struggled, and just to be able to come back and win some games and give him that run was fun for us as younger guys. But man, he was a great guy to learn from. Obviously, Kinsler and I had a great relationship too. I actually got called up for Kinsler. Uh, he pulled his hamstring, and that was the roster spot I took. But me and Kens, you know, built a great relationship from day one. Um, but that year, I mean, we had Benji, we had Trainer, Cliff. Obviously, we had Francoeur come over. Um, Murph was there, and he was at the time. Murph was kind of a younger player, and but all those guys played the game the right way. Elvis was young and exciting, doing his thing. Um, just all those guys just were great guys to learn from, whether it was off the field, on the field. So I just tried to be a sponge as much as possible. I tried to take in every minute of it, and a lot of my game for the rest of my career was modeled after what I learned those first couple of years from those veteran guys.
Was there anything, you talk about how buttoned up Michael was and how much he tried to be a sponge. Was there anything he said to you or anything anybody said right after you got called up that really kind of helped?
I don't, I can't remember any exact quotes. He had a funny one on the plane, but we can't talk about that one on here. He uh he did tell me one time in the dugout. I remember that first year we went to the World Series, come back the next year, we pretty much just ran the table on the the West and you know went through the playoffs pretty easy and got back to the World Series. I remember sitting by him that first game in the World Series and he was like, don't take this for granted. This doesn't happen every day. It was one of those things where I look back and it literally, I was fortunate to play on a lot of great teams through my career. And, you know, that 2018 year that we won it that was the next time I got back to the World Series. And I remember thinking to myself, man, all those years in between, I played on some good teams and we didn't even get close. So, he wasn't lying to me when he told me don't take it for granted, and I just tried not to. It was more the fact of just how they went about their daily work and their, you know, just their preparation.
So I know we want to get to some of the current stuff. I just have one other question on the Rangers. You were one of the guys, you and Elvis and Adrián to a certain extent, one of those guys that went from the transition of that 2010-11 group and then carried it over to 15 and 16 when you became kind of the veteran player. So for you, what was that transition like?
Yeah, a lot of that was help from Adrian and Prince. To be honest with you, during that 14 year, everybody got hurt. It was just kind of like a wash year for us. We felt like 15 coming in, Banny it was his first year as a manager. Um, Everybody had busted their tails in the off season to get back healthy, get ready. I actually came to Arizona, I think right around Christmas, and trained out there with a guy and hit with a guy in the Rangers organization, Justin Mayshore, Mash, the hitting coach. So I spent a ton of time out there. I'd talked to Prince, I'd talked to Adrian a bunch. And during that year, that was the year that Prince went up and told them that he felt like I needed to be at first base and he needed to be at DH. And when he did that, it gave me a little bit of, confidence from that standpoint. Like, hey, this guy's a superstar and he's going up and saying that I need to play first over him. So I knew then, like, all right, I got to hold myself accountable because he's holding me accountable because he believes that I'm supposed to be there. And as that spring training went on, both of those guys continued to tell me every day that, hey man, because I that was definitely like a I can put my finger on it, pinpoint that transition and from I feel like a rookie to or a young player to more of a veteran presence because those guys both continue to say, look, you're going to be a huge part of our team. You're in the middle of our lineup. You belong in the middle of our lineup. You might not think you're that type of player, but you are. To the point where whether I was or wasn't in my career, that year I was because they've made me that. They've like spoke it into existence for me. And when you've got those two type guys telling you that every day, it definitely like just builds that internal confidence and continues to push you because when they go work, you go work. And those two guys, they worked, they got after it. Adrián was filling a bucket of ground balls every day from the first day of spring training. And I'm on the other side, the other corner of the infield. And I'm like, well, if he's still going, I'm going to still go. So I can't let him outwork me because he's expecting the same that I'm expecting out of him. And just that year, the way those guys treated me and Prince was huge. I mean, my locker was right beside him and he told me every day, like, hey, you're going to help us win games this year. You're going to be in the middle of our lineup. You're going to be the reason we're going to win the pennant. And that kind of stuff just gave me that confidence and bred success for me those last couple of years. But yeah, I owe a lot to those guys for for those last couple of years in that transition.
So, all right, Mitch, I just need to know, like, you get a call from the Bananas. What's your first thought when they called you? What was your first reaction?
Well, y'all know me. Y'all know I'm not that type of player. Like, I'm straightforward, serious most of the time. Like, when I'm on the field, it's about the game. And when I first got the call, I was like, I don't know. Let me talk to my wife. And obviously my oldest son's in their crew, and he's the exact opposite. This dude, he's got a football game tonight. He'll have 15 wristbands on, he's all about it. He loves it. And he heard me talking to Suzanne. He's like, you got to, Dad, you got to. And so it was cool the first time I did it. I was in Fenway, which is, a great place to play. And obviously back in front of the fans up there, I thought it would be a cool opportunity. So, kids got to, both my boys got to go. My daughter had gymnastics, so she wasn't able to make it, but both my boys got to go, and they're on the field. My youngest he's literally like, he might grow up to play for him. Jerseys unbuttoned, hats backward on the field, like shagging. And the kids absolutely loved it. And when I got the opportunity to do that and see the smiles on their faces, it was worth it. But to be honest with you, I thought it was more like staged. Those guys are pissed off when they get out. Like, they're pretty, like, they're still wanting to do well and win. And, we had Skull is on the party animals team, and he was drafted while I was with the Rangers. So, I got to talk to him a little bit and see him. And obviously my second go around this year was with the party animals. So I got to see him again at Mississippi State at Duty Noble Field. So yeah, after I did it that first time, I loosened up a lot and really I enjoyed doing it. So when they called back the next time, I was like, where you need me, what time, I'm coming, I'll be there. So it was
you had the walk-off hit in Starkville, right? I mean, is that
I did, but John, the rules are a little bit different with this one. You can walk off every inning. So that was like the sixth inning. It made it look like it was the end of the game, but it was actually I just walked off the sixth inning, but we won it.
Well, what's it like being a high school baseball coach now? I know you were a volunteer coach last year, but now you're into it full-time, head varsity coach at Helena, right? Helena High School in Alabama, where you live. Well, what's that like, and what was the motivation to take the head coaching job?
Yeah, obviously it probably wasn't something that I was just, counting down the days to do. I volunteered last year. I'd been out of the game for a few years, and I wanted a little bit of it back. I've been coaching my oldest and my youngest a little bit, but just get a little more detail with it. Be able to talk to some guys a little bit more advanced. And so last year I called the coach up and I asked him if he'd be, he would mind me coming out and just hanging out. And he's like, man, you can come anytime you want. So at first I started out telling the boys, I was like, I'll come like twice a week. Well, that first week I'm watching them work out and I go like Monday, Tuesday. Well, I don't show up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Don't see them over the weekend. I come back on Monday and they're like, where were you? And I was like, whoa, I came Monday, Tuesday. They're like, yeah, but you didn't come Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I was like, okay. Well, the one of them was like, I wanted to ask you, I had something I was going to ask you about. I was like, all right. So Monday, Tuesday turned into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then all of a sudden I'm there every day. And the coach that was here took a job across town. He's probably, 45 minutes away now. So as soon as that happened, the boys started texting me, and the AD called me up and he's like, hey, because we're a county school and there's some hoops you kind of got to jump through to make this thing work. But he's like, do you want it? And I said, I don't know. So I had to think about it. We prayed on it a little bit, and Suzanne and I talked, the kids talked, and we felt like it was, we felt like it was the right move. my wife's teaching. She's back teaching again, so she teaches first grade here. Crew's in the 7th now, so the middle school is right across the way from the high school. He's doing football, but as soon as football is over with, he can walk straight up there, jump into practice with us, and do his thing. And then I've got, my daughter's doing gymnastics, so she homeschools. But then I've got a younger one that's 7 in the 2nd grade, and he's he's on his way. So we're pretty rooted into the community, and why not? I love the game. I love being around it. I love helping those young men, and kind of pay it forward a little bit with what I was taught. I guarantee you there's some stuff that I learned from those Mike Young days and Ian Kinsler days that these guys will hear and take with them. So, just I try to take a little bit of what I learned along the way and that I'm super grateful for and be able to pass that to those guys. And, hopefully it'll pay off and they can win. So we'll see how it goes.
What's Helena's nickname?
The Huskies.
You're the Helena Huskies.
Helena Huskies. Yep. And then the hill. So you drive up on a big hill. The school's built on a big hill. So that's like our, kind of like the slang for it, I guess you'd say, but it's a cool spot.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let you. I know you got practice this afternoon, so we appreciate you taking the time today. And it's good. It's good to look back at those teams, and it's been nice. You've been able to come into Arlington a few times. I'm
actually headed back the 23rd, John. I'm part of well, not part of. I just have donated to a charity. It's called Doulos Partners, and they plant churches in these villages. They run teams out and plant churches in these villages that have never heard the word all over the world. And they're doing a special event at the Ranger Stadium on the 23rd.
Okay.
So I'll be back out there on the 23rd. I'll have to come holler at you guys.
All right. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. And good luck this season.
I appreciate it.
To your team.
I think I might have to bring you guys in and let y'all do a play-by-play up in the press box.
Well,
we'd love it.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have trouble enough just getting through this podcast every week.
That's
the way it goes. Well, thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good to talk to y'all.
All right, good to see. We'll see you later. Well, thanks to having Mitch on. It's always good to talk to him, and we've had a lot of opportunities the last couple of years to bring these guys back, and it brings back so many memories. Well, this week's Archives in Arlington, we got a few memories as well, and I'm calling this Let's Have Hope. And we've all, over this podcast.
Everybody's always known you to be the sunny optimist around the Rangers baseball offices.
And we've looked back in the past. We talked about a couple of these, but just to recap, these are kind of years where the Rangers looked like they might be out of it, and they jumped right back in. 1998 being one of them. They trailed by 3.5 games in early September. They go into Anaheim the last week of the season, tied for the American League West title, and Todd Stottlemyre, Rick Helling, and John Burkett win 3 straight at the Big A, and they clinch in Seattle in the 160th game, winning the division at 88-74.
I believe that was the night that Esteban Loaiza got kind of lit up with the Rangers clinched in a loss, and Tim Kalishaw, Jerry Fraley, and I were all there, and Jerry wanted to write as his game story off of the clincher, "We've seen the last of Loaiza," because he was concerned. He was certain Loaiza was not going to pitch in the playoffs, and he did end up pitching in the playoffs.
He did pitch Game 3. One of the more bizarre ones, I think, Evan, was 2013. And this was kind of at the end of that first run. Josh Hamilton, Michael Young were gone. But Adrián Beltré had a great year, and the club actually had a 6.5 game lead in May, and was leading by 2.5 games at the end of August, lost 16 out of 22, and trailed the A's by 8.5 games, and were down by 3 or 4 in the wild card. And then club comes home, if you remember, the last homestand, wins all 7 games against Houston and the Angels, and ends up tying Tampa Bay for that second wild card. At this point, there was a second wild card. Both teams 91 and 71 after 162 games. Cleveland had won their last 10 games of the regular season to take the first wild card at 92 and 70. And the thing about that run was the bullpen was unbelievable. Neil Kotz won 3 games, 3 of the 7. Joe Nathan won a game with 3 saves. Tanner Shep, that year the club had a really good bullpen with those 2 guys. Tanner
Scheppers was so good that year, the Rangers decided to make him the opening day starter the next year.
I think he pitched like in the last 8 or 9 games of the season. But as things happened that year, it's the only time the Rangers have ever played what is a tiebreaker. You can't play them anymore. They had the Rays come to Arlington for game 163. David Price outduels Martin Perez, and the Rays get the second wild card. But it just shows you how crazy things can go with Rangers winning their last 7, the Indians at the time, Cleveland, winning their last 10 to make the playoffs. And then 2015, again, we've been over this. We talked to Cole Hamels. The team was 50 and 53 on August 1st, 8 games out in the West, won 34 out of 50, had a 4.5 game lead with a week to go in the season. But as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friends, as the club lost 5 out of 8 and going the final day of the year had a 1-game lead on the Astros with the Angels another game behind. Cole Hamels goes out, throws a complete game for a 9-2 win against the Angels to finish the season.
We should have Cole on to talk about that.
I think we did at one point. And the Rangers were 88 and 74, and that 88 wins is the fewest Texas has ever had to make the playoffs. 1998 and 2015. If the Rangers went out, Evan, they'd be 88 and 74. So
I think it's going to take 87 wins to get into the playoffs. So maybe there's one loss that they can afford in there.
So that will do it. Again, let's have a little hope. That is from the archives in Arlington.
Let's have a little hope.
And we thank you for joining us on this week's Sports Day Rangers.
And don't forget, everybody, that we've got plenty of content at the Dallas Morning News, Sports Day Insider, which is my podcast with Kevin Sherrington, and a Sports Day guest is in the same feed every week. We've got all kinds of stuff on all the socials, from high school sports videos to me and Sean McFarland talking about the Rangers. We're all over the place for you.
$7 grand all the time, and we'll talk to you all next week.